Thank you very much. I'm particularly pleased to be here. The topic is a very, very interesting one, but not only, we've got really very renowned panelists here on stage. I thought we'd start as follows. Maybe you can introduce yourself. I would like to start with Mr. Hucho. Michael Hucho is my name. I represent Accor Hotels. I'm particularly pleased to be here. Susanne Fittkau is my name. I'm an exotic person. I'm not from the travel field, but I do market research and internet research. Bernd Fauser is my name. I've got a T-shirt so that all of you know who I work for. I'm responsible for the key accounts around the world at Google. Andreas Erlemann, I'm the CEO of the Zenith Hospitality Solutions, and we provide distribution solutions. Now, before we start talking about the topic, let me say the follows. It's about courageous people, that is those having a mobile device, and require a lot of services from our industry. Mrs. Fittkau did an outlook into the future, and we would like to give this presentation to you before we start with the actual panel discussion.
Dankeschön. Ja, ich muss Sie noch einmal bremsen in Ihrer.
Well, don't be too euphoric, because we can start with the discussion. I have to say that we're going to talk about what is possible and feasible with mobile power. I would like to change perspective for a little while. I'm a market researcher, and I want to do justice to my job and talk about what is feasible in the World Wide Web. But what is the benefit to the customers and to the users? What is the benefit to all those who can use these systems in the mobile world, and to whom this is designed? Just very briefly on Fittkau and Maaß Consulting, I think quite a few of you might not know us. We're an internet market research company. We do market research in the classical way, but not really that classical at all, because we work in the digital field and on the online market. That is, we are a market researcher, but a link between providers and for users. We help our customers to provide user-friendly mobile services and make them sustainable. You can see the logos, but they're really small. I suppose you can hardly see them. We're clearly embedded in the tourism industry. We work for quite a lot of companies such as Lufthansa, Deutsche Bahn, TUI Fly, and others from the travel industry, hotel, HDS, etc. All those use our consultancy with regard to online and mobile web. I didn't want to bring along too many facts and figures, but some are important for you as background information. Where are we in the mobile market, in the mobile app? This is not our data, but the data of Accor. Here you can see the international market. And we mostly look into the German market when we do research. Here we see the share of smartphone owners in the individual countries, and you can see the diagram. So you see that there are quite some discrepancies. Every one person in six, up to 50% of inhabitants are owners of smartphones, according to the countries. I think people in the room have smartphones. Possibly we have 100% smartphone owners in this room. But if you look around further, then you have to see that not everybody owns a smartphone. We're quite far away from that situation. And in Germany, you can see the figures here. Rather only below 30%. According to other studies, we do have 40% smartphone owners in Germany. But in any case, we're not in the middle and not the average, but we're right in the fledgling stages. Another really exciting question, what do people do with smartphones? Very interesting question to us is whether they use these gadgets and these devices to go shopping. The basis is the people who own a smartphone, and you can see that the values are more or less the same. Between 50 and 77% of smartphone owners have already made a smart mobile shopping experience, and we can confirm this data in our company. It's quite interesting to look at statistical data. There's a lot of dynamism in the market. A lot of people want to buy and purchase smartphones, and these are the figures where we don't see a significant development in our studios. That is, there are quite a lot of smartphone owners doing bookings with their smartphone, but the development or increase is not that significant. Now, these are the facts and figures from our company. Here the baseline are German users, that is German smartphone users in this case. I had a look at the values and I compared this with other studies from other companies, and this data is comparable. This is not a statistic of turnover. It is rather important to see different figures. Smartphone owners who already use their smartphone to go shopping were asked what they purchased when they used their smartphone for shopping last time. It is important also that people are able to remember. If this were a time graph, you'd see a lot of dynamism, because at the beginning, almost exclusively digital products were bought, such as apps or tickets. But this has significantly changed over time. People buy clothes and books with their smartphones as well. But you can see very quickly in light blue that people also buy plane or railway tickets or travel arrangements and hotel bookings. These are important things when it comes to smartphone purchases, and we will be able to discuss why this is the case later on. Some more facts and figures for you. How mobile is mobile shopping? Because very often you think if someone does mobile booking and shopping, people might do it somewhere on the go, but this is not always the case. If you take a look at where people carry out their bookings for certain things, then you see that approximately 50% do their booking on the go, but almost as many smartphone owners do it when they are at home. They are rather laid back at home, they are relaxed, and they don't necessarily do their booking when they are somewhere on the go. Maybe they were at home and they didn't want to go to the computer because they were in a comfortable situation at home. So you can see the situation is more or less 50-50. A mobile utilization of the smartphone at home is absolutely possible. Another important topic that I would like to discuss with the other panelists is apps or non-apps. How important is it for providers to program their own apps? That is not have the mobile website only and have a booking tool or web shop, but program an own app that the users can use. This is an exciting topic to me because I think this is the future, to get away from the apps, because there's a hurdle. We see this in our user surveys. You need to download it, you need to get to know the app, you need to put it into operation. If we ask users, where did you purchase things the last time, or where did you book things, then most of the users use apps. And I was quite surprised to see some changes over time. We had a dominance of the mobile apps, now something else. We don't see a clear trend here. And this is something we could discuss later, because you can imagine that it is not that easy to program an app, and it is rather expensive. Now, to conclude, just to give you some food for thought, one data that is important, because it is also recent data, is the following one. What are the travel apps on the German market? And we simply selected 5 arbitrarily. That is the 2 of Deutsche Bahn, HRS, Lufthansa, and Sixt. And we were quite surprised to see the result. Smartphone users know some of the apps, but not all, and their interest in using these apps differs. Now, I think that this has been enough data, and now I would like to start the discussion. We personally carry out studies, we cooperate with our customers, and we thus see that the travel market is an important driver for mobile apps, and I think we can discuss this together. Thank you very much. Great. Thank you very much indeed. This was a good outlook, a good starting position for us. So the mobile world seems to be a revolution. Is that so? I prepared several questions. If I say, yes, the mobile world is a revolution, and it is not only about tablets, PCs, and smartphones, that is all the things that you can use when you're on the go, but how ready is the travel industry? I'm not only talking about the hotel industry, but the entire travel industry. May I ask you, Mr. Hucho? Well, if you're asking about if the travel industry is fit enough, I can talk about the hotel industry. You need to differentiate between private hotels and chain hotels. We, as a chain hotel, think that we are ready because we invest into mobile services and mobile apps, etc. But generally speaking, I have to say that 80% of hotels in Germany are no chain hotels. I think to them it's really a big challenge to see the future trends and to know how they shall react. Well, I can give you the external perspective. I think the last chart showed this. We cooperate with several companies. There are some major players such as Lufthansa, Deutsche Bahn, etc., and they are the drivers for mobile development, I believe. But then there are small providers such as hotels, and they are confronted with a different situation and different requirements with regard to their customers. So I think there are really big differences in the market. Well, how can I put it? Mobile changes everything. This is what people say. And I think some companies have not realized yet. It's not only about customer behavior and marketing and distribution. It's about the entire business model. And this has an impact on all areas, not only about how people book, but also the check-in in the hotel, etc. It embraces everything, and this is why companies need different approaches. If you've got a mobile, you've got one manager responsible for the topic. But I think it needs to be the task of all the managers in a company, and some companies do have mobile-first strategies already. We do have that as well, and we make sure that this has an impact in all the areas. It's not only one department that is required here. I think it depends on the application model as well, to a certain extent. With regard to major chain hotels, I think that apps are really an interesting issue, but as far as family-run hotels are concerned, I don't really think so, because mobile platforms are used for booking and so as to find the hotel. And I think in this segment, apps are not really very appropriate, or unless maybe you use it inside the hotel. I think then the user profile will be different. Is our world changing because the big players such as Lufthansa and Deutsche Bahn show us what our customers want inside the hotel? Is this what is an important starting point for us, where we say we need a solution? Is this the driving force? Because you mentioned Lufthansa and the facts and figures regarding Lufthansa. You said they are kind of a role model. You do the check-in, you go through the gate, you're very independent thanks to these services. You can choose the seat you want to be sitting on inside the aircraft. Now, what about the entire travel industry? What about the hotel industry? Do they need to follow? Is it important to follow suit, and how quickly do we need to follow? Well, you're asking me. Well, I believe that a major carrier such as Lufthansa is kind of a role model, because they show us what is possible in technical terms, but they don't have any hotels, they don't have any buildings, as it were. Accor, we've got 330 hotels in Germany. We're talking about installation, facility, technology, investment, etc. And it is not that easy to implement this in an industry where we do have premises and buildings. But I don't think that we, the hotel owners, need to see what carriers, transport carriers do, but I think we need to see what customers want. Customers are changing. They're becoming younger. They're becoming more impatient as well. It would be interesting to see whether the future guests want to use their smartphones as to check in and what kind of function they want to have in the hotels. I agree with Mr. Fauser. We are very purchase-driven. Where do people do their bookings? Where do they what? And I think mobile is part of the product. What can I do in the hotel? How can I experience the hotel? And how can I influence the experience of a hotel? What is the temperature in my room, for example? What is the light in my room? Can I book my massage through my Sofitel app, for example? These are things that are more important, I believe, compared to what airlines do. I think there are huge opportunities for our industry. There has been a trend that a lot of purchases were made through the hotels, and the hotels only provided the rooms. But thanks to the mobile services, you can create an added value during check-in, because usually you arrive at the hotel, you get the key, you need to check in, you need to go to the room. You can improve a lot of things thanks to these devices. And then as a hotel chain, I think you can develop things that is of huge benefit to the customers, and why they think possibly to book directly at Accor and become a member at Accor, and then have a lot of advantages thanks to the membership instead of using an OTA, for example. I think it's a huge opportunity for the hotels, but you need to make an investment, of course. 300 hotels were mentioned by you. You need to create the necessary infrastructure, but I think it is an opportunity. Mr. Erlemann. We were talking about pre, during, and after stay. If booking becomes an experience and is to become an experience, then is this what Generation Y expects? And I think we are influenced by other industries in the field of travel and tourism. How can you update your services? How can you offer this kind of service? Well, it's a huge challenge. Because first of all, I think the profile needs to be clear. What do I want to offer to my customers? What will be expected by younger guests who will have the biggest purchasing power in the hotels very soon? And this is linked to the topic of diversity, be it the distance to the reception table, etc. I think it's diversity. Maybe one guest wants to have a personal check-in today, and tomorrow the same guest wants to use an automatic check-in because he's in a hurry, and this might be the very same person. So it's not a guest having one user profile, but it depends on the situation. In other words, there's a variety of user profiles. This is an important factor to also know your customers, especially in the field of mobile services. We usually think about technical possibilities, for example, the temperature in the room that was mentioned. This can be really exciting, but from the past we know many examples where really nobody was interested in this interactive home, with the fridge filling itself and heating that can be regulated easily and automatically. This has not been accepted by the population at large. Not even a few people have taken up on this, and I think in the hotel industry it will be similar. What do guests want? And maybe some things are just too much for the guests, and maybe they think, no, let's not overdo it. Well, I'd be interested in a fridge filling itself. Really exciting topic, but you say that you need to see the guest entering the door, and then you need to decide what does this person need. I absolutely agree with you, although I think, as Mr. Erlemann has said, that people phone you to make a booking, others send an email, others fax, others use OTA, then another person uses a website. We are in an industry which needs to offer everything for people who like talking, sending emails, other people using OTA, etc., etc. And this makes it really tricky and complicated also to understand what is the necessary technology that you need to use, and what kind of technology do you already have, maybe? Well, I think it is not just one way of using bookings. Users have more and more devices, and these devices are versatile. So they use the device they have at hand right now in this very moment. There's the example of sofa commerce. That is, people sitting in front of the telly in the evening, but maybe they started using their smartphone when going home from the office in the afternoon. And you need to guarantee the same accessibility through various channels. And maybe at the end, this very customer will phone so as to make a booking. We did a multi-screen study. I think the industry thinks about a silo when thinking about mobile services. What is mobile? People use various devices. We see this at all these conferences. Is it a laptop? Is it a tablet? Is it a mobile device? What is the system they use? On the go? Well, what is on the go? We know that 80% of tablet users use it on the sofa. We know that thanks to our studies. So people are not using this as a mobile device, but when sitting on the sofa. People don't mind, really. They use the devices in parallel and sequentially. This is according to our study. Let me give an example. My father, when he's watching the telly, he switches off the radio, and vice versa, of course. And 77% of participants in the survey use their browser when watching television. They do it in parallel, and subsequently they use one device and then they continue using a second device in parallel. Maybe they use call centers or in-store. People really don't care about the system or what it looks like, about the looks. Maybe they use the next best thing. Proximity is important. And then you need to think about it. It's not about a mobile strategy for smartphones, but it is about an overall strategy. Yes, it's a different contact behavior of customer. As soon as I open my tablet, let me stick to the hotels as an example. I want to know what is happening immediately. I want to be able to send off a question via call centers or Facebook or email. And this is a challenge for the hotel industry because people use this in different moments during the day. You need to be able to answer immediately because otherwise you're lost out. Yes, well, may I ask a question to you, Mrs. Fittkau? You said it will be mobile. The revolution is mobile. Mobile will be more. And I'm not only talking about smartphones, but everything that you can have mobily with you on the sofa. What do people expect? When you think about the travel industry, what do people want to do in a mobile manner? You don't come from the hotel industry. This is why I'm asking you. You carried out a lot of study, you talked to a lot of people. So what are the people's expectations? What do they want to do and what makes sense? Well, I think the most important message is that people think about certain things irrespective of the devices. And you need to be available everywhere as a provider, especially with regard to hotel bookings. A lot of hotel bookings are made just briefly before the trip. And if you can't book immediately, then you're not interested as a customer. So you need, as a provider, you need to provide a service that can be used on all the various devices and appliances. Maybe sometimes a customer uses a smartphone, but we were talking about other applications, and their expectations are different. I think the most common denominator is booking. And small hotels are struggling more compared to chain hotels because they can offer an app, they can launch an app into the market, and it's worthwhile to do that. It is also worthwhile to the user because he can use the app for a whole chain of hotels instead of just using the app for one small hotel somewhere. I agree with you. Because the classic customers don't exist any longer. There are various types of customers. People want to check in without any stress, and they want to pay with the device. They want to do the checkout without having to wait in the queue. And then there are leisure time people who go on holidays. They want to have beautiful surroundings, etc., and they want to have a comfortable situation. And it is very difficult to combine these two, and this is a challenge for us as a hotel chain as well. And I agree with you. How are family-run business supposed to make the right investments, and how are they to use mobile devices? I suppose Google carried out studies as to how many apps you can use on your smartphone. Well, as far as private and individual hotels are concerned, I think it would be a better strategy to use mobile sites, that is, genuine apps. This is a methodology such as search engine optimization and marketing. This is definitely one important aspect. And I think for smaller providers such as Accor, well, what could they do? I'd try to find one responsive design solution, that is a solution embracing the various sizes of screens, so that you can use various sizes of screens so as to do your booking, for example. And one logic should suffice so as to use this with various devices of different sizes. And then you can reach your target group, I believe. As far as the hotel industry is concerned, I think this is a huge opportunity, but also a challenge. You mentioned various systems, responsive web design. Maybe you need a different application for a mobile telephone. What do you actually book? Maybe for a desktop, the situation is different. You need something else for a tablet PC or a portable device. You still see tablet PCs. You've got very good resolution. But if you want to book a package tour for your whole family on your smartphone, well, this is quite a challenge, isn't it? Now, a question to you. Apps for major chain hotels, yes or no? Would you advise that? Well, we do have a multi-channel strategy, and I can't say which is the best channel. With regard to a conversion, then the app is better, but the mobile website is independent of platforms, of course. I think you need to do everything. You need to provide something for each system, and we are not in the luxury situation that we can make a lot of investments, but I think we've not reached a point where you can say this is black or white. As far as the accessibility is concerned, I'd like to point out that in case of smaller hotels, they should use an app. They should not use an app solution. This might be difficult. I've been surprised about the statistic. It depends on the frequency. How often do you use the train, and how often do you hire a car, and how often do you go to a certain hotel? Accor as a chain would have a possibility so that I book Accor several times if I know that all these brands are part of Accor. But the frequency is important. I know a lot of customers who developed great apps, really fantastic apps. They promoted them. They got a lot of downloads. And what happens? Exactly what you said. People don't book the hotel on a regular basis. And then they forget about the app. And we can see this in studies. According to the studies, people have so many apps. They've got the mail app, the standard app, the calendar app, etc. And then you don't have that much space left for OTAs. But even OTAs have difficulties to get traffic. So I think it is indispensable to have a website. And one further comment, because you were asking about the trend. We said 30% smartphone users. We in Europe have 30% of all search requests linked to traveling are made through mobile devices such as tablets. And then there are countries such as the UK where 50% of search requests are being made through mobile devices. So the customers have already arrived there. The industry is lagging behind a little bit, but people use it, and the industry needs to catch up.
We want to learn to swim fast. Now, let's see what kind of mistakes we could avoid, or investments even, because I think, as you said, to construct an app maybe is not that expensive, but marketing the app durably, that's what costs so much. So if I may remain with you, Dr. Fauser, sustainability. If I say that what I could do in a mobile manner, let's say traveling or data collection, or even check-in in a hotel with my smartphone, QR code, whatever is possible, does sustainability play a role in the mobile world? Now, is that anything which would bring us forward, or does it not play a part at all? We had this discussion discussion about the technological processes and what kind of impact they have. And there, of course, you can make up all sorts of examples. For example, you could have the process of checking in or booking a room in or using mobile devices in a hotel room. But now here we're at ITB, so we should maybe talk about things we haven't talked about yet. When talking about mobile devices, we always think of smartphones and tablets. And Google this year will also create a device and market it, which is also a mobile device, but I think it will completely change the discussion. So if you want to take a picture today, you'll use your smartphone and do so. Or if you want to check in somewhere, you need to know the route to get somewhere, you'll use the smartphone. But in the future, you won't have to even take it out of your pocket. My daughter, who's 4 years old now, she'll laugh about us, the fact that we used to need the smartphone for something. For example, Google Glass, that's what I'm talking about. And that's quite an interesting discussion. So if you don't have to have your computer in your pocket, but you have it on your nose. I mean, we talked about this funny idea yesterday in the hotels when you have hotel owners checking in and being recognized. Now, how does that work? Excuse me, I don't know this. So what is that? It's a pair of glasses with a head-up display. So you know the Terminator? Yes? So it's not science fiction anymore. It's going to happen. So you have a head-up display, and you can see all sorts of things there. So if you're bored, you won't have to play around with your mobile phone anymore. You can just look at your head-up display. And if I want to take a photograph, I don't have to fetch my phone. I can just take a picture like this. And it's also a mobile device, because we only ever think of tablets and smartphones. This is also a mobile device with all sorts of possibilities. And it's going to change our society. So if I try to talk about this in terms of tourism and hotel industry, then what does that mean? Okay, so we have the person doing the check-in and wearing these pairs of glasses. He will recognize the guest as the professional hotel owner would recognize the guests who return annually. Somebody in New York even would recognize his guests. And of course, there are all sorts of questions which may be interested here, also about face recognition. And we'd have to think about that. But this is not the Terminator film anymore. It's going to be marketed this year. And yeah, we'll have new possibilities in the society. Absolutely. Mrs. Fittkau. Now, I wanted to be the spoilsport, and I find this quite fascinating, personally speaking, but we do have to have a look, whom do I have in front of me? Will the guest be happy if I recognize him, or will he feel queer and say, how does he know that it's only the second time ever that I've come here? So with many things, I think we don't really need these mobile glasses or other mobile devices. We'll just have to see what the guest or the customer actually wishes for. It sounds banal, but I think that's very important. If we have quickly developing technologies, it would be interesting to see what is feasible and whether what is feasible is something the customer actually wants. Maybe the customer would really be happy, maybe not to be recognized the second time he goes, but maybe the third or fourth time, or that he has the right music in his room. He might find that great. Some older people may think that's scary or not interesting. So be it the hotel industry, be it any other industry branch, I think you would have to ask your customers. It's so much cheaper to ask before you go into the wrong direction. Yes, that's what I think. So, we are in the hotel business, so our staff already has to do so much. So it's important how to handle these things. And now I read information on paper, but unfortunately we don't have too much there. The thing is, we need more information maybe. But if we do have it, we would have to know how to deal with it. So as a staff member, I would have to know which are the regulations, how far I can go, and how much more data I can sensibly collect. And what we can expect of the guests, especially the younger generation Y at the moment, who will soon have the greatest purchasing power. Some of them will expect to be personally recognized and that their personal preferences are known, which can be seen in social networks, social media. They will expect this information to be known and to be used by the hotel. And thereby their stay will be made more personal, even if they've never been in the establishment. I think, yeah, it's a balance we have to strike, which is not easy. So the hotel owner will have to ask himself what his customers expect of him. There will be customers expecting this to be personally addressed in this manner. I think so too. The fact that electronical devices are growing onto the body, that's certainly a fact. And I can see us all sitting here like the Terminators next year wearing these glasses. But I think that in the industry branch of the hotels, anonymity is also a kind of protection. We wouldn't want to be online all the time. And I think it will be up to the customer to decide where he can see value added. He will see, is the technology part of the product? Is it a part of the service? Is it good for me, or is it too transparent? And I must say, yes, it's very, very difficult. Trial and error, yeah, that's what we have to do. Market research, certainly. Yeah, if you do it wrong, your customers will not return. You've lost them. Let me return to the topic you talked about direct marketing in hotels. That's something hotel owners do, or hotel operators. It's something which is not up to the booking systems. I find that quite interesting because you say, yes, we do work with sales partners, but we also have direct contact with our customers. And therefore, I think that this new, what's it called, Google Glasses, whatever you called it, well, I'm quite intrigued by that, because these are things which happen directly in the hotel during the stay of the guests. And I think there is a great opportunity in the business branch. If you have these tour operators and hotel operators, they could have a huge opportunity here, because at the destination I can do things with my customer. Because very often I arrive somewhere and I want to do something else, book something else, need some advice, or when checking out, that these possibilities are not used, although they're there. And how often do we go and check in and somebody says, so have you ever been here? And I said, yes, last week. You know, it still happens. I think that even if we focus on the mobile devices here, I do think that the final devices actually make the data so strongly and easily available and can be aggregated. And in this case, either on purpose or just by mistake, users may have made the data available or public. And today, of course, we have so much information and leave it at the check-in desk. The hotels don't even use the information they have. So the question will be, apart from the question as to how to use the mobile devices, the challenge here would also be to see how can I control the data and turn it into a service. So how can I manage to have information available with which I can individually provide services to the customer? I think that's very interesting here in these times, because people nowadays tell you everything, and if they don't tell you, you can still read it because it's been posted somewhere. So that's a huge opportunity. And I do believe that people individually want to have bring their own device, for example, in the hotels. And so that you can say, okay, here you can use your iPhone, listen to your music, have your atmosphere. Is that something which would be an add-on for a guest, an additional value? Could you imagine that? If you say, okay, I can be cozy the way I like, that would be a bonus? Certainly, yes, being able to use your own devices and bringing them along, I'm sure that that is an additional value. Certainly not for every customer. They'll have to have the devices, of course. We've seen that 1 in 2 doesn't even have a smartphone. But yes, of course, this would be a good thing. Is this part of the hotel of the future? I think so now, looking at Accor, but there's a hurdle here, which is the diversity of the products and the standards. Looking at the automotive industry, you only have 3 types of fuels. You have diesel, you have petrol, or whatever. So wherever you go to Japan or anywhere else, it'll be the same thing. But that's not the same thing with the mobile device. Just imagine the whole, imagine the diversity of sockets you'd need for the electrical equipment. So we don't have the standardization here. We need a common language so that every hotel room can be equipped with something like this. And if this doesn't prevail, we don't have certain interfaces and standards, then it'll take quite a long time for somebody to invest in this. And you can see that the mobile branch has not even been able to have just one same way of one charging mechanism, for example, and the EU Commission had to decide that we'd have the same kind of charges. Now, if we get back to the hotel industry, talking about hotel changes or even individually, we have purchased all sorts of hardware and software with which we check in and check out, do certain things. And my question would be now, what remains? We have these providers with PMS systems, quite fragmented. So you have an in-house system, you have central bookings or reservation systems, channel managers, all sorts of different sales distribution channels, the websites, other websites. What will remain? I'd like to ask Mr. Erlemann, does that mean chuck it all out? We need everything new, or can I keep part of this and then maybe add on the other things or integrate them? That is a very difficult question. I think there's no clear answer to this. I think as a hotel operator, I would at first understand myself as a customer towards the service provider and make sure I know what I want to do. And then I would look and see whether the systems cooperating with each other more or less can be adapted in such a manner that they can be integrated. Because otherwise, maybe I would have to make large investments in the IT infrastructure. Let's get back to the many data. PMS providers and these systems are not quite prepared to process and use these many data in such a manner that the guest, when he's standing in front of the staff member, will actually have a service provided, and that's a challenge. Well, yes, we have more information, but we should use it better. Yeah, the question is what I want to do with it, and that depends on what my customer expects of me. So I will have to be very clear about my user profile before I do anything. And I have to be able to look into the future a little bit. So the expectations the guest will have, which I want to fulfill, they have to be clear also for maybe for the next 3 or 5 years. Now, carrying on a bit provocatively with this thought, Mr. Hucho previously said that we are basically a hotel and we're not a technology center. Then I would say it should be the other way around. A hotel is a technology enterprise which just, by chance also sells rooms. So you're now an online sales company and you're selling not just books but rooms. And I said that the CMO in the future will have a higher IT budget than the CIO. So data and technology-driven, everything will be more technology-driven, and maybe we'll have franchising in the future as well. So technology enterprises, which just happened to have also some franchising in rooms, such operation as well. We're shocked. Well, in a way, you're right, because the hotel group, of course, needs the CRS, this central booking system. That's what we live off, the whole groups, and that's a kind of a cloud, and that's very important. So yes, we need to make investments in the IT sector, but they should be invisible because we are still talking about hospitality. That's what it's about. So we shouldn't be stumbling upon cables, but we should be eating well, drinking well, and sleeping well. Well, one thing shouldn't exclude the other, because we talked about this amount of data, which is in part even freely handed over to you by the customer. And what am I going to do with that? So, of course, yeah, we want to use this positively. If you know the preferences, or you know what kind of room or food the guest likes, or what kind of additional services, then that's something which should be interesting. And I, as a guest in a hotel, would like to see that. What I like is the idea of the cloud, which is, of course, is also an opportunity to say, okay, let me present what I have in the house, because of course I need to have an IT infrastructure and backups, and sometimes as an hotel operator I am responsible for data where I should have an IT person. And if I could outsource that and replace it maybe with a more modern version where I wouldn't be so responsible for local installations and the backup, then that could now be the time to say, okay, so many things are happening, let's do it. Wouldn't be bad, would it? Well, I'm not a technology person. I'm a hotel operator, but I can see what the big hotels are doing. We concentrate on the brand and sales, and then there's lots of technology behind it. So you have maybe somebody leasing this in a franchising system, benefiting from this. And then this person would have nothing to do with all the cables you're trying not to trip over in a hotel. And that would make work easier. So I think that as a hotel operator, you would have to hand over certain responsibilities to someone who does it better. We do that also in our companies. We have people helping us, of course, far too much. I'd like to mention this as well. But yes, we do burden sharing in this labor world. But we'll have to make some decisions, decide which way we're going to go. So let's say it'll be more technology-driven in the future. So if we have 100 hotels, out of which 80% are privately owned, what are they doing? Where are they going to go? I think that's not clear yet. Well, then that would be a value added for the franchisor, because obviously, these kinds of topics are just too much for him. So you would offer not just the brand and ask for money for this, but you would actually provide him with services which cannot that easily be provided for by small hotels. Now, I may say that, okay, I mean, chains are a marvelous thing, but there is also a system, cloud system, which does provide solutions, individual solutions, where you just say, wow. So it's one-stop sales with all modern facets, which is not as costly as traditional installations. Fortunately, things have proceeded here. So there are some opportunities for individual hotels as well. Yes, I think there's a great chance here. Lots of opportunities. We talked about this, and we looked beyond what we were discussing at the moment, and not just at the chain hotels, but sometimes you could get the impression maybe that this is too much, that the challenge is too overriding, that I won't be able to meet this challenge, if I have a small hotel. But I think somebody might have had a mobile page a year ago, then he would have had to have paid much more money than he will do in the near future. And converting existing websites into a mobile solution for the smartphone, tablet, and conversion of the tablet as well, there certainly we will need some solutions which will react to the different size of screen. And again, we will always have to ask ourselves, what do I want to do? And that's what I, as an entrepreneur, as an hotel operator, will have to think about. Because That would be the most important thing. Now, 10 years ago, if you had asked, does every hotel need a website, many would have said, far too expensive, not possible in that. Nowadays, of course, we have this solution whereby every hotel can do it. There's a very cheap solution here for booking, but it's not just a small booking route, but we also need to have a taskbar where we can say that I can see who books where, how much. If I lose bookers, where do I lose them? Then a cost-free solution is maybe not sufficient. It needs to be a proper solution. Now, you said that planning is important. What am I going to decide today, and how long is it going to be valid? So it's important how long-standing these decisions will be. So it would be interesting to have your statements on this. What's going to be the case in 5 years' time? I find that quite intriguing. Now, let me say that I think it's great that we have information and exchange in discussions like today's discussions. That's very good because we learn so much. And we can, I wouldn't want to say Google so many things, but that comes to mind. And so we can go into the internet and we can have exchanges with colleagues. And I realize that people are better informed, my colleagues, hotel owners or operators. Now, if we said, what will we have to have done in 5 years' time so that we don't leave half the people on the way during the booking process? Now, in the hotel industry, if we took an average hotel, I think in 5 years' time, 1 in 2 bookings will be done online. And the hotel will have to be ready for that because the customer will decide which booking system he will use. We will not have booking machines anymore, and I don't believe in the OTA model either in the long run. I think that hotel brands are important because they give you orientation with the prices and they are recognizable, and that's where the mobile devices are so important, because if you are a loyal guest, you will be recognized in the hotel. Mrs. Fittkau, you as an opinion expert, well, what the devices will look like, I don't know. I think the different phenomena will grow together, so you'll have one or the other, or even several devices at the same time. That'll be tomorrow's world. So more and more people, we saw that. Now it's only half the people, or even only 25% of the people using these gadgets. But I think later on, everybody will have one or the other device and will be using it. But the boundaries will always be unclear, really. It'll overlap. You have classical and online distribution systems, everything sort of merging. Now, in 5 years' time, we'll all be wearing glasses, Google glasses, going to hotels which are mobile-free and will not be recognized. I would like to retrospectively say that 6 years ago, when the iPhone arrived, people laughed about a device without keys. And I think now there's hope and there's worry about the glasses, but we also have Microsoft Connect, which is nearly right, and nearly marketable now. We have flexible screens, which are ready for mass production. We have smaller devices like smartphone watches, something like that. I wouldn't like to exactly say what it will be, but I'm sure it's going to look differently in 5 years' time. So the discussion on smartphones and tablets will be half over by then. That's what I think, too. I'd like to thank you all. This was a very interesting discussion round, and I'm very happy to see that we have an industry branch everybody wants. Everybody wants us. It's a huge opportunity for the hotel business. It was great fun. I hope to see you in 2 years' time. You with glasses, rather all of you with glasses, and we will recognize each single one of you as well. Thank you.